So, for the second time of asking, the Brooks Trophy, now with poleman Barry Cannell back in his rightful qualifying position. Green flag waves at the back of the grid to signal that it's all go.
Watch the Ferguson.
Watch the Ferguson. The right-hand side of your screen is the blue car in the Rob Walker colours. And again, it's out of the block so quickly as Nick Adams cuts across to the middle part of the course. Barry Cannell is second, John Chisholm is third, Gregor Fiskin is fourth, Paul Smith is next. Round the outside, the lofty Connaught of Michael Steele. And then there goes number 40, which is Will Nuttall in the Cooper Maserati, burning from the stern. And we'll see how far he gets up. I think he'll get well into the top 10 if the car is functioning properly. There's a classic front and rear engine battle. Gregor Fiskin trying to annex third place from John Chisholm. Into your side, Bruce.
Well, and with quite a lead. Nick Adams has got about 10 car lengths this time over Barry Cannell. Of course, he was challenged so hard by Will Nuttall last time round. Gregor Fiskin's just made a move up into third place. He's gone past John Chisholm. John Chisholm fighting back as they go up the rise towards Lavender. He'll have to look up the inside if he wants to depose the Scotsman, but Fiskin stays in third place. And Barry Baxter, you can see in the pale green BRM, running around in about sixth, fighting with Michael Steele's Connaught. But a fantastic start off the line, as we expected from the Ferguson of Nick Adams. And only now are we starting to see the poleman Barry Cannell fighting back in his Cooper Climax.
Number 11, Tom Bailey, making some good ground from his lowly grid position. And they come into Woodcote, and it's the Ferguson of Nick Adams leading, Cannell second, Fiskin third, the Lotus 18s of Chisholm and Smith next up. Barry Baxter around the outside, right out over the grass. What came around the outside of the Connaught has to tuck back in behind it as a result. He's got a Ferrari and a Maserati, and I think it's Richard, it's the 51 car as well. Through they come anyway.
I can't believe that Barry Baxter didn't lose more ground in that incident. Now he's having a go up the inside of Madrick and makes the move stick. And Tony Smith also deposes Michael Steele's Connaught.
Yes, Baxter was certainly bold at Woodcote, but he's made it stick now. He's got a good record here, and also competes on bikes. We've seen him numerous times in the past. So 3 now for the lead. The two Lotus 18s chasing. Barry Baxter next up, under attack again. This time it's number 12, Tony Smith, who's coming up on Barry Baxter, coming down towards St Mary's, Bruce.
Well, a slight mistake there from Barry Cannell. Ran a little bit wide, and certainly catching very quickly is Gregor Fiskin in the Ferrari. And with that mistake, he's got a chance in the Ferrari to make an attack as they go through the second part of Lavant. But look at the field now. Barry Baxter going somewhat backwards, and Michael Steele not coping too well, but the lead trio pulled very well clear. Nick Adams, how long is he going to stay in front? Of course, the four-wheel drive Ferguson, brilliant at the start, but now we've got Barry Cannell taking a look up the inside. Not going to quite happen because he has to guard himself against Gregor Fiskin in the Ferrari. Fiskin, being on the outside line, will stay in third place, but he's got the power, he's got the grunt to close right in where he needs to be.
He certainly has, and Nick Adams driving beautifully in Stuart Rolt's Ferguson, car that was in the Ferguson Family Museum at one point. First 3 together. There are the two Lotus 18s, Chisholm and Smith. Fiskin got a couple of best sector 2s. John Chisholm matched him though. There is the green BRM, and look behind the green car from the back of the grid, number 11 is absolutely flying, and that's why it's not Bailey, it's I think it's Gary Pearson driving the car. Gary Pearson in number 11 from the back of the field. It's one of the Bailey team cars, normally driven by one of the lads. And Pearson charging his way through in that unusual kind of turquoisey colour car, an Australian machine of old.
Well, it's all even Stevens between the first 3. It's still Adams in the Ferguson from Cannell in the Cooper, and again the Ferrari with Gregor Fiskin making a challenge. He's got the nose half up alongside. This is his chance to try and nail it for the second part of Lavant, but with a wonderful sweeping line, Barry Cannell holds on to second place, and that gives a little bit of breathing space at the front for the Ferguson, but not enough, because good exit speed, but slightly constricted as he went through the kink. It looked as though Cannell had the run on him, but the Ferguson has the power down as they go up the straight towards Woodcote, is on the inside line, does have the four-wheel drive, should get the grip, and this is the moment that Fiskin has another look up the inside, but he stays in third place.
It's a nice battle, isn't it? Those 3 cars across the track coming into Woodcote. It's getting very, very tight up front. Gregor Fiskin's going to fancy his chances, you know, because he's really showing very, very well here. And Barry Cannell had a look towards Madgwick, but he wasn't going to be able to unseat the Ferguson there. He's going to have to do it in the part of the circuit where, oh, we've got a problem there. Sam Wilson, he's backed his number 8 Cooper. He was trying to make up ground after that gearbox problem. He's off at the side. He's out of the car. He's fine, but the back of the car has taken a bit of a knock, I'm afraid.
Todd Bailey in number 11 has brought the Cooper Maserati into the pits. Nick Adams, well, getting away a little bit.
That's Gary Pearson. Right up he flew through the order.
So 2 of our stories, the drives from the back, unfortunately have been spiked, but the battle at the front is still absolutely fantastic. Every time Barry Cannell gets up close, you were quite right, Mark, because every time he gets close to Nick Adams in the Ferguson, he gets challenged and has to resist the attack from behind. And here's a replay, presumably, oh dearie me, that was Sam Wilson going off on a little dingle on the back of that, but
he's made a mess of that.
Not his meeting.
No, he was making up for that broken gear selector. And was it on its own? It looked like it.
On its own.
Just checking on progress of Will Nuttall, looking to see where car number 40 has got to. He's up. Yeah, he's making his way up the order. Oh dear, another fall of Paul Griffin. Put his Cooper Climax into the gravel.
It's the 1959 Glover Trophy winning car of Sterling Moss that Paul Griffin has popped into the kitty litter.
Well, look at the top 3 now, covered by under a second, 0.6 of a second, and this time Nick Adams in the Ferguson doesn't have the advantage that he had before as he went into the first part of Madgwick, and again the Ferrari with Gregor Fiskin looking to try and maximise, grab any opportunity that comes his way should Barry Cannell get out of line, trying to take the lead from Nick Adams. But for now, as they get to Fordwater for the 5th time, it's still the Ferguson in front, it's still the green and red little Cooper behind, chasing very hard Barry Cannell, and with all the speed to catch them, but not yet the opportunity to pass them. Gregor Fiskin right on the tail in that gorgeous 26 Ferrari.
Yeah, Barry's having to work very, very hard in that as the rear engine car in the front engine sandwich, other way around probably reality, but it's got a good traction through that part of the circuit, but the yellow's still flying, of course, for Griffin. Now, Gregor Fiskin, I sensed, backed off rather more than the first 2 did through there, and there's a change of lead on the kink. Barry Cannell takes the advantage on this lap 5,
and we've got the safety car coming out, presumably to rescue that Cooper out of the kitty litter. So this will close the field up.
Fiskin's back with them. They've seen the flags, and they're relating to that. Now Barry Cannell is not having got to the head of this. Is going to see the pace car. He needs to slow it down just a touch, and they come past with John Chisholm going to bridge the gap onto the back of them now. The whole field will close up. Arms coming out of cockpits just to signify that there is a safety car out.
Maybe a couple of laps of safety car. Shouldn't be too difficult to get Paul Griffin's car out of the
Still
sand.
have about 7 minutes to go.
And what that does do, of course, it wasn't just the top 3. It'll close them up, but it will close everybody else from Don Chisholm, Paul Smith backwards right onto their tail when we get to the restart. Michael Steele's had an up and down sort of race. Second start of the day, second brilliant start, but just doesn't have the pace when they get up to full racing speed. And he lost the positions he gained in the early sprint off the line.
He suddenly fell back quite a lot, Bruce, in the course of 1 lap, didn't he?
Yeah, he lost a couple of positions. Basically got out-dragged up the start-finish straight. By the time he got to Madgwick, he was pushed out wide, and I'm afraid all his work was rather undone. Whether it was a missed gear out of the chicane, I do not know. But the tall Connaught sliding back down the order. But what a great chance to look at the final front-engine Formula One cars and the way they do their business so differently from the rear-engine Coopers and Lotuses that got their way past them as technology came on in leaps and bounds as the 50s turned into the 60s.
Looked as if there almost a motorway collision as the cars slowed down, and cars at the back were still going fairly quickly, but no harm done.
Barry Cannell, I see, is a Tor Bolton House member. Looking at the points, they need their points, don't they? But the next Tor Bolton runner is Lucas Halusa in the white Maserati 258, number 56, down in 15th place. Here comes the tractor to retrieve that Cooper of Paul Griffin. He comes in from the Far East to compete here at Goodwood. And all the cars back together pretty much on track.
And worth pointing out, 14th place is as high as Will Nuttall has risen, having had to start the second start of the race from pit exit.
He's done a 31, which is about 4 or 5 places, 4 or 5 quicker than those ahead of him. So he may get into the top 10. This will give him another opportunity, just maybe over a couple of laps, to get into that top 10 in the field, having started in the pit lane.
So just running down the order from the top, Barry Cannell leading the way, having just taken the lead from Nick Adams on the exit of Lavant. Nick Adams down to second in the Ferguson. Gregor Fiskin right in behind them, backed off somewhat with the yellow flags down at Lavant in the Ferrari. He's third. John Chisholm and Paul Smith in the Lotuses, 5th and 6th. Barry Baxter in the the light green, the pale green BRM is in 6th place.
There's Paul Griffin just trotting across to his bolide.
That just emphasises that the length of that run, how much grass there is on the exit of the corner. The second part of Lavant just beached, won't be beached for too long now, as long as they pull it straight.
Nick Adams
looking at the start, and there's some good starts down the order. The Aston Martins went pretty well, didn't they? And also trying to get in the mix was Marshall Bailey in the number 32. He's back up into 8th place now, as a matter of interest.
Cannell's a bit sideways off the line, using lots of revs.
Bear in mind, he hadn't made that first start. He'd gone from the pit lane first time round, hadn't he? So it was his first experience of trying to gauge how many revs he needed to kind of break traction and fire away. That's what he did. He slewed across to the left.
Great rear shot there, really showed what a clean start it was, but the fact that Nick Adams just rocketed away, there was no dent of the car going sideways, he just put it straight, 4 wheels, putting the power down, and off he went down towards Madrid.
4-wheel drive the way forward.
It'll be interesting to see if he can get the jump on Barry at the restart.
Well, I think it's down to Barry just paying absolute attention to what's happening. He dictates the point of restart.
Yes, it may be a case of kind of backing them up, mightn't it, and then giving it a squirt coming out of the chicane. I'm hoping we're going to get a lap or so. There's Paul Griffin. They've got his car to a position of safety. He's going to pop his crash helmet on.
I think he's got the engine started and hoping to drive it back to the pits.
He's got to worry about the HANS device as well, hasn't he, to hook all that up, etc. Now mandatory on these sort of cars.
And even mandatory in hill climbing now.
Is that right?
Yeah. In single-seaters, yeah. Open cars.
The head and neck restraint systems that were pioneered by Jim Downing, 3 times an IMSA Camel Lights champion, and his brother-in-law way back. The early ones were like a sort of diving helmet on top of a sort of a rotating ball race, which was all very strange. And the helmet kind of ran on a track on a yoke, which was very complicated, very heavy, and probably very uncomfortable in a 24-hour race at Daytona.
The clock is counting down, 2 minutes it shows. Are we going to get another a sort of this race restarted before we run out of time? Looks like they're going on to 1 further lap behind the safety car, so I think we'll have to be competing against the clock here.
Yes, I fear it's just going to end like this in terms of no fight for victory unless they're going to give them 1 lap. There's Paul Griffin with the autocross spec Cooper. I wonder why he needed his crash helmet on to drive it 50 yards across a piece of grass.
I think he had greater aspirations. I think it involved rejoining the race. But
you're probably right.
Well, the order has now, of course, stayed the same behind the safety car, but Barry Cannell's got about a 2-second gap over those behind. It's really stretching out. We really want this field. And the clock has reset. That's good news. We looked at it last and it was below 2 minutes, so we will get at least 1 more racing lap. So they'll come round to the start-finish line, and then it's up to Barry Cannell, who's got all eyes on the safety car ahead of him, waiting to be sure that the lights go out off the roof lights off. Then he'll know the restart is coming, and then he'll know that he's the driver that's dictating it. But I would say, if I was Nick Adams, I'd want to be right up behind him, not many car lengths back. So he's got to close up, Nick Adams. Gregor Fiskin in 3rd place, be very keen to get right onto Adams' tail as well.
Lights are off on the safety car. It scuttles away.
The question is, can the 50s Grand Prix cars keep up with the Porsche?
Yes. So Nick needs to get a bit closer to Barry.
He does, and Barry's got this sussed out in his head, hasn't he?
He's pretty much up to racing speed, isn't he?
Yeah, he was paying attention. I think the others, I don't know why Nick Adams hung back as far as he did, but in fact he wasn't the only offender. There were others further down the field that weren't staying hard on the tail of the car ahead. Now they're bunching up a little bit more as they get to the chicane, but now is the chance for Barry Cannell to stretch clear and see what he can do. But great acceleration again from the Ferguson, Nick Adams, the number one in the background, to Gregor Fiskin losing a little bit of ground in the Ferrari, back in third before the two Lotus
0.7, 1 to 2, 0.8, 2 to 3. Cannell over Adams, Adams over Fiskin, Chisholm, Smith, Baxter, Smith, Bailey the next group through.
2.5 minutes to go, so a couple of laps.
Well, again, the first three have pulled clear of all those behind. The Lotus 18's dropping back. Gregor Fiskin having looked around the outside, not close enough to do it at the King before St Mary's, but he's kept his foot in. He wants the inside of the Ferguson, and he has it as they come up to St Mary's, and in fact gets very close to the tail of the Cooper. But Cannell leads, and now Fiskin, who tried so hard before the safety car came out, up into second place. Now, has Nick Adams got anything in his tool bag? Oh, that was terribly close, and I'm afraid Cannell really came across on the nose of Gregor Fiskin's Ferrari. I don't think he thought it would still be there, but it's Cannell from Fiskin, and Adams hanging on in third place.
And yes, John Chisholm not that far behind them in fourth, sort of rejuvenated Sir John Chisholm.
He gained ground when they were fighting through St Mary's.
He did.
And, he's keeping the momentum going. Let's see if he can join the battle. He'd love to, because they got away before the safety car came out. And now Fiskin almost two wheels on the grass.
Menacing, isn't he, through there? Just, he's got all sideways and he's dropped it, he's gone round, and he's off the circuit. Gregor Fiskin's thrown away a podium place. I'm not so sure he's snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, but from the jaws of a podium, and that has put Sir John Chisholm up into third place. Smith fourth, Baxter fifth on his tail. Tony Smith next up, but it's Cannell now from Adams as Gregor Fiskin gets going again.
Well, he knew he had to try something, and was starting to line up Barry Cannell, trying a little too hard, got those wheels on the grass just oh so gently down at Woodcote, but then it all came round, and Nick Adams isn't finished in second place. He's having another crack, and he's getting onto the tail of Barry Cannell. Can Cannell hold on in the number 3 Cooper, but the number 1 Ferguson right behind, using all that traction that it so famously provides up to St Mary's for probably the final time.
Yes, it is.
It will be the final
there's
time.
There's a car ahead of them they might catch, I think.
Nick Adams much closer. Slightly earlier on the brakes than Cannell.
Cannell's having to be terribly defensive, which won't lead to the best exit line, that's for sure.
And he's run wide, hasn't he, Cannell? But he's got in and hightailing it down the straight now towards the kink on the Lavant straight. Through he goes.
And in the background, Tony Smith, I think there was a misgear from Barry Baxter, and the Ferrari went past, nearly clipping the tail of it. But anyhow, all eyes now on Barry Cannell leading the way as we come down. This is indeed the final lap, because we've got 10 seconds left. And can the Ferguson go past? It looks as though Cannell's covered all the bases through Woodcote.
He's just dominating the centre of the track, isn't he? And giving Adams very little option. But now Adams has the four-wheel drive acceleration. And he's making use of it, but Barry Cannell it is who's going to win the Brooks Trophy race from Nick Adams by 0.466 of a second. John Chisholm is in third place in 18. Paul Smith in the sister car is fourth, number 9. Then we've got Tony Smith, who took advantage of that probably misgear from Barry Baxter that Bruce described. Marshall Bailey is in 7th place. 8th is Matthias Seletsky. 9th from the pit lane is Will Nuttall. Good effort from him. And in 10th place, Mark Valvkens in his Aston Martin. But you can see on this replay here, as Gregor Fiskin on the penultimate lap touches the curb just enough to unbalance the Ferrari and spin it round. So very frustrated, the Scottish motor trader there. He goes round, and here's our winner then, Barry Cannell.